According to the most comprehensive statistical analysis yet conducted, violent video games increase aggressive behavior as much as lead exposure decreases children's IQ scores.
This is what we had to deal with growing up. Bored, out-of-touch Karens calling us kids who like to play video games violent addicts, blaming Doom for every little psycho who went outside and set the family pet on fire. Which leads me to this 1993 episode of Step by Step, titled Video Mania, a title that was also used by this American news station for its segment about the video game craze of the early 90s, claiming that some families had become Nintendo-pendant. Coincidence? I think not. This episode of Step by Step offers a fascinating snapshot of 90s attitudes towards video games and their perceived impact on children, reflecting the era's moral panic about video game addiction, which was fueled mostly by media hysteria and the misconceptions of the general public. So, sit back, relax, and allow me, the Tominator, to walk you step by Step's portrayal of video game addiction, because it was wild. I do want to start off saying that Step by Step was one of my favourite shows growing up. A fresh 90s spin on the Brady Bunch. Frank has 3 kids, Carol has 3 kids, they don't get along at first, but step by step, they become a real family. Heartwarming shit. And this heartwarming episode about video game addiction starts off with Carol's son Mark, or just the kid from Beethoven, entering the kitchen and declaring,
"This is the worst day of my life,"
because he only got an A and not an A+ on his maths test. Carol and Frank come to the conclusion that Mark is wound too tight and needs to find a way to relax. The B-story of this episode is that Cody, Frank's nephew who lives outside in a van, has a cold which he tries to cure by doing this.
Boom shakalaka laka, boom shakalaka laka, boom.
Anyway, Frank, being the cool stepdad he is, buys Mark a Sega Mega Drive, or a
Super Video Buster? Gee, I don't know, Frank. Kids get so caught up in these video games, they forget to do their homework.
Frank then reminds Carol that they're talking about Mark, a kid who wants to self-delete over getting an A on his maths test. Then Mark comes down the stairs, apparently reading the Dinosaur Bible, complaining about how it's still calling the Apatosaurus a Brontosaurus.
Is there no pride in species identification anymore?
Frank then shows him the Super Video Buster. Worst name for a console I've ever heard. I'm just going to call it the Mega Drive from now on. So, Frank shows Mark the Mega Drive, and Mark says something no 10-year-old boy has ever said in the history of mankind.
I appreciate the offer, but I'm just not into video games.
Frank then urges him to give it a try, and Mark, being the nerd he is, comments on how he's at the very least interested in the hardware itself.
Well, I have been curious about this new 64-bit microprocessor.
Then Frank suggests they should first try playing
Alien Warlords.
Okay, that game sounds sick, but the box art isn't really selling it for me. I love how the props department put so much effort into the console box, but absolutely zero into the game case. Some poor props guy probably spent all day making that console box, and at the last minute the director was like, "Yeah, we also need a case for a game we're calling Alien Warlords. You have 3 minutes." Carol says the game sounds too violent, to which Frank excitedly replies, "Wait until you see it."
High-resolution graphics, over 1,000 pixels per square inch. Very impressive.
And just like that, Mark is one of the boys. How he knows it has over 1,000 pixels per square inch just by looking at it is truly astounding. And I've got to give Christopher Castile, who plays Mark, some credit here. He's at least playing the video game realistically. More often than not, whenever someone is playing a video game on a TV show, they always do this stupid, over-exaggerated, "look, I'm playing a video game" acting, which has bugged me my entire life. So, good for you, Mark, you pasty little legend. A few days later, Frank's youngest son Brendan is happy to find out he's back from school before Mark, so he can finally play some video games too. Then Mark comes home with his mind clearly not on school anymore.
Hi guys, bye guys.
Frank, feeling rather pleased with himself, brags to Carol about how well his video game idea is working out. But this victory is short-lived because 2 seconds later, Frank's daughter Al enters and is only too pleased to tell Frank and Carol that Mark got a D on his maths test. Carol immediately blames the video games, and Frank says there must be another reason for Mark's test score. They then walk into the living room to find
Peanut choice to grow up, crush your head like a peanut.
Mark's gone feral and is showing clear signs of not so much video game addiction, but methamphetamine abuse, and is violently attacking Brendan because he won't give him the controller. After the situation calms down, Carol and Frank tell Mark he's not allowed to play video games during the school week. So apparently he's free to maul his younger stepbrother on weekends. Mark says he just got carried away and goes off to do his homework and apologise to Brendan. Later that night, Carol hears noises coming from downstairs and wakes Frank.
Maybe strung out on drugs and has a gun and is ready to shoot anything that moves. Go check.
Classic. Frank descends the stairs wielding this clever hat on a golf club decoy, only to find that it's just Mark playing video games.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Frank, being a filthy casual, doesn't know that 3 o'clock in the morning is the perfect gaming hour. Carol tries to take the controller off Mark, who starts tweaking out again, and Frank pulls out the power cord.
Frank, plug that back in.
Now it seems we're not just dealing with video game and meth addiction, but also a possible demonic possession. Frank then picks up Mark and takes him back to bed. Cody then tries to make Karen's hickey disappear. Anyway, we then find ourselves at this Alcoholics Anonymous meeting for video game addicted children. I mean, was this really going on back then? Is there anyone out there that had to go to something like this? Because please let me know, because I am shook. Mark thinks this is all a complete waste of time because he's still in denial about this dangerous addiction he's had for 5 days, but Carol and Frank still make him attend the meeting. They sit in a circle, introduce Mark.
Hi, Mark! Friendly bunch.
Then some kid gets up and starts sharing with the group like he's at Alcoholics Anonymous.
It's been about 30 days since I've, played a video game.
Oh wow, 3 days? What do you want, a sobriety coin? Sit down! Then the group starts confronting Mark, picking up on all his classic signs of having video game addiction. They start bombarding him with one question after another. How's your grades, Mark? Been in any fights lately, Mark? This scene reaches its climax when Mark is asked if it's tough to sleep at night if he doesn't have the highest score, and Mark goes nuclear.
But I always have the highest score! I'm Mark the Terminator Foster. And I'm
Jeffrey Dahmer's spiritual sequel, run children, run! So after that outburst, Mark can't deny his addiction any longer. He sits back in his chair, completely defeated, and admits to having a problem.
I'm Mark Foster. I'm a video game addict.
And the episode just fucking ends. There is an end scene where Dana's now got Cody's cold and Mark appears to be completely fine, but as far as the video game addiction storyline goes, it just ends. No sort of counterpoint like, video games are fine in moderation. You can only have too much of a good thing. No, just video games are a Class A substance. Don't let your children anywhere near them or else the devil will claim their souls. The whole way through the episode, I wasn't sure if the writers were being serious or not with the addiction story. At first it was all just played for laughs, but this Alcoholics Anonymous meeting at the end and little sobriety coin Colin over here made me start to think that they were treating video game addiction seriously. And it just all seems like such a Christian mum's take on what video games were doing to us back then. Like they expected us to play with the same ball and cup and stick and hoop that they played with in 1956. I mean, I always loved this episode because it was about video games. But now I look back and I want to get all punk rock and be like, fuck you, Step by Step. You can take Castle of Illusion away from me when you pry it from my cold dead hands. It's just another classic example of how misunderstood video game culture was and sadly still is. But let's not open that can of worms today. Of course I still love Step by Step. I just think this Video Mania episode serves as a cultural artifact, revealing how mainstream media and the entertainment industry struggled with the growing video game phenomenon, and shows the disconnect between our actual experiences as young gamers and the alarmist narratives spread by politicians, mainstream media, and parents who were just simply not prepared for the video game boom of the early 90s, as if they never acted like escaped patients from a mental asylum over 4 Englishmen with bowl cuts. Bloody hypocrites. That's all I have for now, folks. Really appreciate you staying to the end. And if you like this kind of stuff, give us a like and subscribe. And I, the Tominator, will see you all in the next one. Hasta la vista.